This is a new iPad.
Probably a good portion of your life is on that iPad.
Is the internet a net positive, in your opinion?
I always joke around and say if I had the power to burn down the internet, I would.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Fill in the Blanks. Very special guest today. You probably know him most recently from a Netflix special that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. I'm talking about James McGibney. He is the owner of the site bullyville.com. If you don't know that site, you need to find it, you need to follow, you need to track what he's doing. He is a cyber security expert who has made it his mission to use his skills to help people victimized by revenge porn, for one thing. He found out about a site that we're going to talk about here in a little bit that was something that I had a lot of passion about because of the way it victimized people that were so innocent and minding their own business. And the site was called Is Anyone Up? You may have seen the docuseries on Netflix. I think it was The Most Hated Man on the Internet, a guy by the name of Hunter Moore. James devised a plan to shut that all down, and we're going to talk about that and how he does what he does. We're going to talk about Bullyville. He now helps other victims in removing their stolen images from the internet and the dark web. So he knows a lot about things that most of us don't know about, need to know about. And he's going to tell us how to protect ourselves. He's going to tell us how we may be getting exploited when we don't even know it. It's all very important to protect ourselves and protect our children and to kind of see around corners about how we can be vulnerable socially and financially as well on the internet. So welcome, James.
Thank you.
Good to sit down and talk to you.
Good to see you, yeah.
Well, we've worked together on the show before where we had problems to solve in front of us, but we haven't had the opportunity to really have in-depth conversations about what you do and why you do it and how you got into it and all of that. So that's why I said I wanted to schedule something and sit down and talk about all of this. So you actually have a day job, right?
Yeah, I'm the senior director of cybersecurity for a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
And my job is to make sure we don't get hacked. And I've been there for a decade.
Listen, my listeners here are a very dedicated group of listeners, and they're very intelligent people. They're very curious people. They have a willingness to learn and apply things they learn. And I know that about them because I've been doing this for a lot of years. I know my core audience, and I want to start talking about some of this, assuming that I know about maybe average what people in my generation know about the internet. I've always said younger people have the knowledge about the internet. I've watched my grandkids, they zip around like crazy. I mean, they just go everywhere. They have the knowledge, but not the wisdom. I feel like I have the wisdom, but not the knowledge. And so I want to up the knowledge curve a little bit. When you say you've worked there for a decade, keeping them from getting hacked, let's define hacked. In cybersecurity, when you say hacked, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, a hacker is trying to get into our secure environment, and they're trying to get into our networks, our servers, and our job is to keep them out, but they're coming in for a specific reason. And it's 9 out of 10 times it's financial. They want to hack your systems. They want to get into your environment. They want to learn your environment. And then they want to make that financial move to get money out of your account out onto the Bitcoin platform.
How'd you get involved in all this?
Because I had no friends in high school. This is what you become right here.
So you were a nerd back in high school?
I was a nerd, and then I went into the Marines. Right out of high school when I was 18, I went to my first duty station was 3rd Surveillance Reconnaissance Intelligence Group. So when I was there, I quickly got moved over to the computer side of the house. And then from there, I went to Marine Security Guard Battalion at Quantico, Virginia, and was responsible for 128 cybersecurity for embassies around the world. So I had 128 embassies that I had to make sure never got hacked. Because could you imagine if an embassy got hacked or all the embassies got hacked and now the hacker knows what time the Marine is changing guard, where's the armory, how many M16 A2 service rifles are there, how many grenades? There's so many things that you can glean if you were to hack an embassy.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What year did you start first doing this? Because the internet's changed a lot.
Yeah, I was in the Marines in 1992. And why I think I got into it was it is true that in high school, I really didn't have any friends, but I started to get into computers. And the thing with computers is you get out of it exactly what you put into it. There's no disappointment with computers. There's disappointment with people, unfortunately. But whatever I put into that computer, whatever code I put in, I get what I get. And if I made a mistake, it immediately tells me and I fix it and I move on. So there's no human element to it, which I really enjoyed.
Well, email wasn't even a big thing yet
That's
in
right.
1990.
That's right.
I mean, they were using email. You could send emails and stuff, but it was still DOS
Yeah.
and all right.
Yeah. And the military had their own email system at that time. But
Yeah.
there was no, you're absolutely right. There was no publicly available, full-blown email
Yeah.
system in place. And it was, COBOL was the big language, common object business-oriented language, nerd stuff. And that things have evolved so much to look where we are today. It's unbelievable. The internet has just exploded.
Yeah, and the power of devices. This is a new iPad, and they tell me it's...
Probably a good portion of your life is on that iPad.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
There's way more power in here than we had for the moonshot,
Yeah.
right? You could do the moonshot with this.
Basically, yeah. You can control a multi-billion-dollar company with an iPad.
Is this a good thing? Is the internet a net positive, in your opinion?
I always joke around and say if I had the power to burn down the internet, I would. I feel that but it's just I'm extremely jaded because of the business that I'm in. My job revolves around bad guys all day, every day, and watching them use the internet for the worst possible purposes imaginable. But there's other people who have very pleasant experiences on the internet. They run small businesses off of the internet and they have no problems. But I do see quite an uptick in even the amount of businesses that are getting harassed by customers, and it's online and you get bad reviews online and you want to get those reviews removed. And then you find out it's a competitor who's doing this to you and they're doing it online and they're sabotaging your entire business and they're doing it from the comfort of their own home on an iPad, probably.
What do we do about that? Because, right now, being fairly high profile and knowing high profile people, I've seen people that'll go put hate messages on my social media platforms. And then I'll be talking to friends of mine that are also in the public eye. And there are times when we have seen that somebody will post exactly the same message
Cut and paste
on 10 of our emails, just seeing if anybody will take the bait.
Yeah.
If anybody will respond and get bent out of shape and argue with them or react to them or whatever. And then there are people that will just go on a hate campaign against someone. You get people that will just jump on the bandwagon and not have any idea what's being talked about.
Yeah.
But they'll jump on the bandwagon and start spewing hate and I'm going to come cut your baby out of your stomach and kill your pets.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what they're even talking about, but they're spewing that kind of language and hatred on somebody's Twitter account or any social media account. And there's no check and balance to that at all.
Right. And I think Twitter, I'd be curious to see what happens with Twitter over the next 90 days or so, because, if you compare your Instagram experience with your Twitter experience, at least for me personally, it's night and day. I feel that Instagram does a better job at it than Twitter does. I feel like they have better algorithms in place that can automatically go and look for hatred and certain curse words and certain things, a series of words, kill baby, for example. Like you had mentioned, that's a prime example of one that would be gone right away. And then how do you stop it? What do you do? Well, you have very thick skin, I can imagine. So it probably bounces right off of you. But a lot of people, block, ignore, report. But the problem when you do that is trolls are seasoned. A seasoned troll probably has 50 other accounts. So you go through the headache of getting one suspended, they still have another 49 to use.
Well, does the algorithm, and we can talk about what that means in a minute, but does the algorithm pick up that these accounts have 0 followers and they've sent 50 messages in a year?
Yeah. And
does it pick up on that?
It should. I've seen it hit or miss, especially on Twitter. It really does. It's hit or miss. It's very odd. And that's why I'm curious to see what the next 90 days hold, because I think that's Elon's basic premise. I've seen him say it multiple times, is that there were a lot of issues related to programming, for example, at Twitter. And I think he's coming in to try and fix that. So that's going to be the first litmus test.
Well, I guess we have to talk about where that intersects with free speech. People talk about First Amendment as though they've never read it. I mean, really, it says nothing about business.
Right.
It just says that the government will pass no law.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about what a business can or can't do or should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's a slippery slope if they start trying to require some of these social media platforms to regulate speech. And of course, they have been regulating speech. They just kind of decide what's okay and what's not.
That's right. And, look, as a Marine, I would take a bullet for your right to free speech and to say what you want. That's why I joined the service. But there is a limit. So I can give you a personal example. We mentioned earlier Hunter Moore. So Hunter Moore, after took over his site, he called me a pedophile. And he did that on Twitter. And he did that to hundreds of thousands of followers. And just like you'd referenced earlier, other people, without knowing anything, were amplifying that and retweeting it. And next thing you know, millions of people are seeing this and they're reading it and they're retweeting it. And you feel hopeless. I did reach out at the time to Twitter and said, this is insane. Shut this down. They wouldn't do it. And it was basically, well, you're a public figure and people can say whatever they want about you because you're a public figure. Nope. I would not accept that as an answer. I sued him for defamation and won $250,000.
Problem with a lot of these people is you can sue and get a judgment.
Then you got to collect.
I'm
going to beat him over the head with it until he's dead. I'm going to chase him, all around the world if I have to with that judgment. Because the plan is whatever, I've already, said this publicly, whatever we collect, I'm donating 100% of it to battered women's shelters throughout the United States, which is important to me. So you can go on the dark web even now today in this political environment. And if you're a Republican and you're having an online dispute with a Democrat on social media, there you go on the dark web and you can hire someone to go harass and stalk the person you're having a fight with for a couple grand. They will stalk them online. They will stalk their children online. And in some instances, they will physically stalk them.
And if these bad actors can get on the dark web, then so can the FBI and the county sheriff and other people. Do they do that? Do they get on there and track this activity?
They do. And that's how they ended up getting Silk Road. The problem is, and God bless law enforcement, I'm a huge supporter of them. You're really limited what you can do. So if someone comes to you and says, my naked images ended up on the dark web, the law enforcement's really limited what they can do. If you even serve a subpoena, you've somehow found a server somewhere where you're able to issue a subpoena. Even if you got the results of the subpoena, the chances are pretty good the IP address information, the location you get, is not where that person actually is. They've obfuscated their IP address and they're in another country altogether. So it's a never-ending rabbit hole. And that's where Bullyville comes into play. I bypass all of that. Once again, I believe in what law enforcement does. I wish them all the best, but I can just get past all of that and target that individual server or site on the dark web.
You can get to it and then you can interact with the owners of that domain or the domain itself or whatever.
Yeah, or not interact with them at all and just interact with the server itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Allegedly.
Yeah. One of the things that we deal with all the time is these companies that put up fake ads selling products. They make the representation that Oprah and I have a product, or Robin and I have a product, or me and any number of people, they pair up, have these products. It's a bait and switch. They say you get this for free, but you have to give us your credit card number, of course.
Yeah.
We get so many letters from viewers, particularly those on fixed income, that say, well, I'm going to try this. So they do it, and then all of a sudden they're getting billed $78 a month and they're on fixed income, or $178 a month, and they can't get it to stop.
Right.
We try to find the companies. We send cease and desist letters. They close down, move across the street, open back up.
Yeah.
It's hard as hell to find them. It's hard as hell to track them down.
Yeah. And the key is to find the owners. You got to find, and those are who you go after. You go after the owners and make sure, at least from our perspective, we want to make sure they know who we are and what we're about to do, and give them, the same thing with Hunter Moore. We're going to give you an opportunity to do the right thing. If you don't, you're going to pay the digital consequences. And it's the equivalent of a digital enema that we gave to Hunter and that we give to others that rightly deserve it.
Yeah. Sometimes we found that they're as close as San Diego, and other times Thailand.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So, and then even if you go to the police, what are they going to do? How are they going to stop someone in Thailand?
They say, well, that's a civil matter.
Yeah, it's a civil matter. And you go to the courts, and courts, if you get it, like you said earlier, cease and desist, you're going to send it to Thailand. That's going to go in the trash can.
Yeah, I bet I've sent 100 cease and desist letters.
Wow. Think about all the time and energy. And if you had attorneys that were doing it, how much money was involved in that. Yeah. And you're still at, square one.
Yeah. And people are still getting sucked in by these people.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Yeah. And now how many of the people contact you? Do you guys have a lot of customers who then contact you saying, hey?
We do. We help them every way that we can.
Yeah,
and we
tough.
Tell them what they need to do to stop it, to call their bank, to do this, because the banks will stop it.
Yeah.
If they call their credit card company, they will cancel it.
Absolutely. Yep.
But most people don't know that.
Right.
You have some 75-year-old woman out there and they keep hitting their credit card every month. I say, well, I can't get them to cancel it. Well, you can call Visa or Amex and tell them it's fraud. They'll stop it.
Exactly.
And they might even give you the money back.
Sometimes.
It depends on what kind of card and all that you have.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest threat out there right now? We talked about some of these frauds today, but what's the biggest threat out there that people need to be concerned about on the internet? Is there a list?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest concern is social engineering. So back in the day, it was brute force attacks. It was man against machine, breaking into the networks, getting on the servers with no human interaction at all. It's a lot tougher to hack Microsoft these days to get to someone's email account. However, if I could email you directly via social engineering, that is the human-to-human element, and that's a lot easier. So I always tell people, be real cautious. Just assume that everyone is out to get you on the internet, and that if you go in with that attitude that this is probably something's wrong with this email, for example, chances are you're right. Your gut instinct is right. Always go with your gut when it comes to cybersecurity.
And if people get these emails from the IRS or from Amazon or whatever, and it says IRS, it says Amazon, it says Target or eBay or whatever, and they're not asking for money, they're not asking them to do anything, there's just a link there that they click on.
Yeah.
How do we get them to know not to do that? And if they're, for example, a regular Amazon customer, so they have a lot of traffic back and forth with Amazon, it's real easy to mix one in there that's phony.
Yeah, it's tough. I always tell people, just take your time, especially the elderly. I work a lot with the elderly community, and just take your time, look at the email, and worst case scenario, forward it. Forward that email to everyone. Even Amazon would have a customer support email address where you could forward that to them and say, is this legitimate? And just take your time. There's no rush. There's no rush to click on anything. You're going to be okay.
Scammers are getting smarter.
They are. Hackers are some of the smartest people in the world.
And they're getting really sophisticated.
Yeah.
They have good computers. They have good computer skills.
Yep.
And we're just normal consumers. There's a real mismatch here.
Oh, it's not fair. It's definitely not fair at all. And that's why, I was looking at that stat earlier of over $1 billion of scams in 2022 from 60-year-olds and older. That's a staggering statistic if you think about that.
But it takes your cooperation in most circumstances
You
for
have
them to
do
get
something.
to you.
Yeah, you're going to have to do something.
You got to click on something.
That's right.
You've got to answer a question. You've
That's
got to
right.
do something.
Yeah.
And if it feels wrong, they need to hang up or hit delete.
Yeah. Or find someone who's in cybersecurity. There's usually someone in the family or extended family who's in IT or even cybersecurity. And I always tell people, you always want to have one cybersecurity friend in your circle of trust in your group. And that's who you want to go to. So if you're not sure, instead of reaching out to that company, reach out to someone who you know is in cybersecurity and have them take a quick look.
And that's what I want them to hear is, look, if you don't believe what you and I are saying here,
Mm-hmm.
if your emotions are running rampant, all we're saying is make one extra phone call.
That's right.
Call that person in the family, call your son, call your brother, call the company, call the bank, call somebody and say, hey, I've got somebody telling me I have to pay money in the next hour or bad things are going to happen. Is that true? One phone call. And if you ever do it and you ever beat them, the gratification will make you looking for the next one.
That's right. And not only that, you're going to spread the word. You're going to tell other people, this person tried to scam me. Here's what they did. And it gets out on social media and it's a group effort to say the least.
And I don't know how they do it, but as I've gone through my text recently, coming up to the midterms, I got so many texts to my telephone number, which is what this text is driven by,
Mm-hmm.
that had my number calling me
number.
somebody else's name and telling me, hey, listen, Carol, hey, Bob, it's time to do thus and so. And I got so many of them that it was just crazy. Ride, share to vote. All of these things on propositions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think I counted up 15 of them the other day at one time. Here's one. Christine, early voting is underway. I'm not Christine, but they got the number and they send it. And I guess they were looking for me to click on some link.
That's right.
Or something.
Or to donate money, as they would put it, for a political agenda.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's the worst this time of year. This year specifically, because of the midterm elections and now Thanksgiving and Christmas, this is the worst time of year for fraudulent activities. And hackers are very busy this time of year.
How do these people escape prosecution so well? Are we just that far behind in cybercrimes prosecution?
You got to prove it. You got to prove the crime. So, and that's the other thing is you have to find that person who actually did it. So I would say on average, from what I see in my world, I would say 8 to 9 out of 10 hackers get away scot-free. And the reason they do it is they have, when that money's transferred, it's going to overseas accounts and then it's being immediately, converted into Bitcoin, which is the best money laundering thing on the planet, basically. Because once that money hits Bitcoin, it's gone. And that's that. And there's no way you're getting it back. And
there's no tracing it, no tracking.
No tracing, no tracking. Once it's gone, it's gone. And then you can move that however you want at that point. But, you feel bad for prosecutors a lot because they'll get the subpoenas, they'll get everything in place, and then the person's overseas. And your jurisdiction, the United States jurisdiction in China, for example, good luck.
Yeah. Now, who's making this money? Because if you've got somebody that's scamming an individual, calling and saying, it's your grandson, we've got to have bail money, et cetera, et cetera. Are these a bunch of lone wolves, or are they working in a syndicate? Are they in a workroom that's run by someone else? How does this work?
I mean, look, I can tell you that North Korea, I know countries that run off of scamming people and ransomware. North Korea's regime, the majority of the money that they receive is from scams that are done here in the United States. They're very good at it. But even individuals, there's a crazy phenomenon happening on the dark web right now. So say I want to hack a company, multi-billion-dollar company, let's say, and I'm proficient in Linux, but I'm not proficient in Apache, MySQL, PHP, Python, whatever it may be. But I know Linux real well. So I go on the dark web and I crowdsource my hack. And I say, I need this expertise. This is the company I'm going to hit. This is the ransomware I'm going to use. We plan on getting a $2 million, $3 million payday, and I will split it evenly amongst everybody. And this is happening quite a bit now on the dark web, where people are ganging together as a conglomerate for the same goal of extorting money out of companies.
How about the Nigerian love scams?
Oh, I mean, those are all day, every day. You see them, right? And that's another example, preying on human emotion, especially someone's feelings and someone who wants to be in love. And, that is one of the worst ones. And a matter of fact, I see more scams happen with that than anything else. Those are huge.
Well, we've done a lot of them, and I've actually had a few of them talk to me.
Yeah.
And who knows if they're telling the truth or not. But I've had some tell me off air
of course,
that they're in a workroom.
Yeah.
And they've got an electronic spreadsheet. I sent this poem to number 1, this poem to number 14 and 67. And they're in different parts of the country. And I've used this picture with this person and this person and this person. And they've got it set up where they don't overlap.
Yeah. It's phishing to the end. It's really like, think about phishing, not the PH, but the actual phishing. You have all your lines out there and they have this spreadsheet, and they target 100 people simultaneously with the thoughts of, even if we get 2 or 3% of those people and we get $25,000 out of it for a day's work or a couple days work. So some of them drag on, but a very good scammer hacker should be in and out in no more than 2 weeks on any operation.
Yeah. Like I say, I've had them in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. It's money gone. You'll never see it again either.
Some over $1 million.
Yeah.
But again, it's over a matter of a few months.
And for the bigger ones, it takes time. And, sometimes it's interesting. I've seen one case, I'm thinking in particular, where the woman was doubtful. She was, this doesn't seem right. I'm not sure. She should have went with her gut, but her husband had passed away a decade earlier, and she wanted to, find love again. So your heart bleeds for those type of cases.
And we see the same pattern. It's like, from the U.S., my wife has died.
Yeah.
I have a daughter. I'm doing construction in a foreign country. I have to pay some fees before I can get out. I was stopped at the airport. I've lost my passport. Even had one that said he was hijacked by pirates. They've come up with everything, but I've got several $1 million. I just need money to get home and marry you, and we live happily ever. I mean, these promises, and they send these beautiful poems. I love you more than life itself.
And you're not hearing that from anyone else. So
No,
you hear that, and
you're a widow, and you're 10 years older than the picture they're sending you of who they're supposed to be. And you're thinking, wow, how great would this be?
Yeah.
And it kind of appeals a little bit to their greed, in that he's got $20 million when he gets here, and to their ego that someone so attractive is interested in me.
Yeah.
Common sense is suspended.
That's right. Common sense is suspended. It's a good way to put it.
It's funny that they'll go months and never see the face or never talk on the phones. Well, his phone's broken. Well, you sent him a phone. Well, it got broken again. It's heartbreaking.
It is.
To see it happen.
On the flip side, it's really enjoyable when you can go after someone like that, that's preying on innocent women, and really teach them a lesson to where they might even think twice about ever touching a computer ever again.
Yeah, that's a good feeling.
It's the best.
Yeah, it's the best. Well, I hope people are hearing us. I hope they listen. Just take that extra beat, take that pause, make that phone call, and protect yourself. Because if you get burned, and I hear you, passwords need to change, or use the, what do you call it?
Two-step authentication, Microsoft Authenticator app, where you can not have passwords, go passwordless.
Well, I've got two-step authentication on everything, but I don't have the Microsoft Authenticator app.
Yeah, I could show you how to.
Well, I'll get that.
Yes, sir. Microsoft's getting a free plug today. You're welcome, Microsoft.
Yes, you're welcome. They do advertise with us.
Oh,
so
there you go.
They owe me for this one.
Yes, they do.
But whatever to protect, it's like you say, you only got to get burned once.
That's right.
You feel violated. I see these women that I was saying earlier, they work 40 years and build up a nest egg to retire on, and it's gone in 30 days.
Yeah. And you can't get it back. And you always think, well, law enforcement will help. I'm sure they'll help, and they want to help, but they can't help.
I thank you for taking the time to talk about this and enlighten people about this. Use two-step authentication. I do. It's a little bit of a pain. You just get a text.
Yeah.
And you have to put in a 6-digit code,
Yep.
but it takes like 10 seconds.
Yep. And then it verifies it's you, and then you're good. Yep.
And listen, thank you for what you're doing in helping these women that are getting ripped off with this revenge porn and that sort of thing. You saved a lot of people, a lot of heartache, and saved some lives when you took down that website.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it's not the last.
No.
You got to feel like, hey, that was a good day's work.
Absolutely.
It may take months to do and a lot of time and effort and energy, but people are helpless unless you step up and do it.
Sometimes vigilantism isn't the worst thing out there, when it's done correctly, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
There's got to be a real
when it's
purpose,
done correctly and
legally in some instances.
Yeah. Certainly on the fringe.
On the fringe.
Yeah. They get what's coming to them, but a lot of people are very thankful. And I'm thankful that you're here, and I hope you'll come back and help us further on these, because we just keep getting people that are victimized by this.
Yeah.
And all we can do is fight back and continue to teach people and raise awareness.
You got a strong voice. I mean, you get it out there.
Well, I learn stuff every time I talk to you, so
thank you.
I appreciate it. Guys, thanks for listening today. Take care of yourself going into the holidays with all of this stuff. We'll keep you posted on any new scams we hear about, even if it's just a short little blast. Because if something new pops up on the horizon, tell me, and we'll jump on and we'll tell people about it.
Absolutely.
All right. We're out of here. Thanks.